So for this how-to video, I'm going to dig into my own personal newsletter that I send out every 2 weeks. It goes out to family, friends, just anybody that is interested in keeping up with whatever I'm reading or into at the moment. I call it Interesting Times. And as you can see, I put a little bit of a twist on it. I'm actually using the HTML portion at the top that you have right here in the layout section of design. And I'm going to walk you through that process. So first off, I shoot an intro video that I have for my audience, and I upload it, put it into Wistia. I get the URL for that. That's going to go in here, so you can see just this little bit of code where I actually link this image, but in this case, I put a GIF image. So I take a clip from the video, bring it over here to ezgif.com, and then create a GIF from that section. You can take out frames, you can speed it up, you can optimize it, do things like that. But I use that, save the file, upload it to my website so that I've got it on a server that I can link to, and then I use that code. So here I am calling the actual image itself. So you see the image source in this code right here in the HTML, and then I'll link to the video from that GIF. I also put a text link underneath, and then I write kind of an intro. So mine has my own voice to it. It's something that is from me to people, most of whom that I know, but others that I don't, that maybe they're just interested in what it is that I'm looking into or reading about at the time. I try to talk about interesting topics that I come across in technology and startup world and crypto and food and health and fitness, various things that I find interesting. So if you think I'm interesting, then you may find these things are interesting. So the way that I go about that, I actually have a filter that I've got in my email. So you can see these are just all the different newsletters that I get. I'm in the business of email. Email is kind of my filter. So I get a ton. And from there, I find these interesting articles. So this is from Daily Stoic, from Ryan Holiday. I'm a big fan of him. So I'm going to put in this article and all of these others that I have up here into my newsletter. So it's simple. I'll take this article right here. I'm just going to manually add it, copy and paste this. Let's just save that so it's all good. I'm going to come over here and manually add an article. And then it brings everything in. Add that article, move on to the next one. You can see I've got several lined up. These are all just articles that I've read over the course of the week. I get them from various places. Most of these I've gotten from newsletters that I subscribe to myself that I kind of condense down to these are the ones that I've found interesting over the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to bring that, add this article. So you can see I've got a lot of different things. I've got this about Chrome, now adding caption to audio and video. Here's some talk about, is the pandemic going to bring about more efficiency and work from home? Technology hype and the media's coverage of it. Google's tracking changes are going to be tough on marketers. Email, again, I'm an email guy, so email and what it's done for us. Growth as a mindset. So you kind of get a flavor for the types of things that I'm bringing in. So I'm going to add all of these articles to my content pool. I'm adding them in, copy and pasting them on the add as an article just so you can see how that works. We've also got the Rasa Chrome plugin that makes that easy and soon to be available, or maybe available depending on when you watch this video, the Apple and Android apps that will allow you to quickly bring in articles that you may be looking at from your mobile device. So I've taken all of those articles, I've added them in. You can see the headline, the caption, the source name. I like to make sure the source names are all correct. Sometimes it'll bring in something funky just depending on the site. Take a look at them. You see this one right here. This is an article that I brought in that it doesn't really have an image associated with it. So when I add it, it doesn't add an image because there's not an image. It looks like it tried to bring in this logo, but that logo is too small. So you can see it's got this right here, but it's probably not going to fit in the template that I have. I could change it or I could just remove it. So I'm going to remove it, and I'll show you what that looks like for when you bring in an article that doesn't have an image with it. If I wanted to make any changes to any of these excerpts or add kind of my take on it or comments on that, I could go in there and be able to add that right here. That's not difficult. And what I'll do is just make sure everything looks good from this standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, I've added all of this text. The other piece that I can do is change the subject line or the preview text if I want. So right now I've got it set to just pull in an AI generated one. So that means whatever the top recommended article for somebody receiving my newsletter, that headline of that article would be used as the subject line. Of course, I could change it and make it whatever I want. Obviously, that's not what I want, but I could change that to be that. I'm going to just leave it at AI generated. I can do preview text. I just put this here. Hey, I thought this was interesting enough to share. It's coming from me. It's got my email on there. So that is the send settings. I've already set these, but I could adjust them. Let's make sure that 7 articles go in. So if you remember over here, got 15 articles that are going to be there. Only 7 will get actually put into a newsletter. And here's an example of it right here. So it's going to be an article with a big image and then smaller articles at the bottom. You can see this is that one that doesn't have an image associated with it. Let's look at an example of somebody else. So this would have been that article at the top. So you can see kind of how it changes depending on who the recipient is. So it can be as automated or as manual as you'd like for your newsletter. You can see I put a little bit more manual effort into mine just to kind of personalize it to that extra degree, especially with the video. But you don't necessarily have to do that on your end. It just depends on what you're trying to get across to your recipients. This is just another way of setting up a newsletter for yourself, like I do for my own personal newsletter.